I'm Juliet Birch, co-curator of short films for Filmfest DC, and today we are with Keith Lane, whose short Dispatches from the Vietnam War appears in our MetroShorts program. This shorts program highlights the work of filmmakers in the Metro Washington area, and it's available to view on our virtual platform from October 2nd through October 6th. By way of a brief introduction, Keith is a documentary filmmaker based in Washington, D.C. His work has taken him to earthquake-ravaged Haiti, the mine-infested fields of Cambodia, and a politically volatile Cairo, among many intense settings. This animated short Dispatches is a very different kind of project and has earned recognition both nationally and internationally at film festivals. Welcome, Keith. Thanks for making the time to be with us today.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
I thought we'd open by your telling us a little bit about Lloyd, the subject of your film, and how you became familiar with his story.
So I first met Lloyd because Lloyd is now my father-in-law. And when my wife and I were first dating, I had heard her tell stories about his time in Vietnam. And then he told a few that were really funny and very insightful. And I thought they were different than from what I had grown up with hearing about that particular conflict. And I thought they were just really interesting. And so not that long after, I think I was like, hey, I think it'd be really interesting to do something with them. And I kind of just would pepper that into conversations over the past 7 years. And then last year, I was able to come up with an idea to put them down in the format that you're seeing right now with the film.
And did you all, like from the get-go, had you thought of recording these stories as to make an animated piece, or did you start with the recording and think, I'm not sure what I'm going to do with this, but
Yeah. So no, at first I knew I wanted to just get the stories. I didn't know if I was going to do traditional video or audio recording. And so when I pitched the idea to him, because they are personal and it was going to be shared. Well, I didn't actually know how far it was going to go. I really made it for him and as a practice for myself and as an experience. I didn't think it was going to be going into film festivals at the time, but I knew it would be public. So I wanted to make sure that I had a very clear idea before I talked to him. And so I noodled around for a long time. Is it going to be an audio piece? Is it going to be a video piece? But it happens in the past. So what can I do about that? And then I was like, animation. And it all just sort of came right into place. And I thought, okay, it's going to be an animated short film. It's going to have 2 or 3 or 4 stories in it. And that's kind of where I left it off with him.
and how long were the recordings?
It was one afternoon, and it was one about an hour or so and change interview. I ended up filming him. I was supposed to do an audio recording that day, and my gear just was there were gremlins. And I thought, okay, I'll just grab the camera. And I thought it'd be good too if the animator wanted to see what he looks like today without just photographs. So I ended up doing a sit down interview with him.
Interesting. And tell us, so your animator is Catherine Monday,
Yep.
and tell us how you all came together and what that collaboration was like.
Yeah, so I reached out to a friend of mine who is at NPR, and she's a very creative person. She's a photo editor, she's a musician, she does lots of really great projects. And I said, do you know of anybody there or anybody in the area who you like? So she sent me a list of like 4 or 5 different animators, and I went through all their portfolios, and Catherine's work just stood out to me. And I knew that once I saw her work, I thought, okay, this is the person I want to work with. And then I had to pitch it to her, and she was really into it and was excited for the challenge and just seemed like the right fit. And I just made the decision. I felt like it was going to be really difficult to convince someone to work on a project like this, but she was really excited to do it.
And what did you think was the difficult pitch?
I think it was just trying to figure out how do you how do you show something that happened in the past, right? This is like the hardest thing with documentary filmmaking. Documentary photography is different because, it's in the moment. And with filmmaking, so much of it often happens in the past. And so I wanted to make sure that I was clear too, that the animation didn't override the story, because the story was the most important thing. And she really understood that from the beginning. And I was just sort of nervous because here I was with this idea that I thought, well, maybe a few people would be interested in seeing, like, friends and family, but even friends and family. But the most important thing was that Lloyd really liked it and that he was really happy with the end result. That was my main focus. And so I was a little apprehensive about putting myself out there. And, there was nothing behind it. It was just, hey, I really want to do this. Does this sound interesting to you? But I think it was just taking that step, when you start a project, and you're really excited about the project, but you're wondering, like, what will anybody else be? It feels like high school. Like, does anyone else gonna like me for working on this? So, just human nature.
And I can, I can kind of really feel, it's so personal to Lloyd, what your relationship to that must have been like, that you really want to have this be a project that he feels good about.
Yeah.
It's it's a story that is very exposing. But so the most interesting thing to me about this film is uh, the first two stories are, there's an ordinariness to them. He's talking about things like learning to, quick and dirty learning to type, to get a typing job, um, drinking Corona, just really ordinary things. And yet you're aware that this setting is extraordinary. And I'm wondering if you could talk a little bit about that juxtaposition.
I think it's that exact juxtaposition that I've always been interested in my work and throughout it, which is in the ordinary, very, very, very difficult, weird, strange, bizarre, challenging situations present themselves in. It doesn't matter if it's in your home life, or if you're overseas in a conflict. That paradox has always been something that I've been interested in exploring. My farming project in Kurdistan, you have these farms and everything looks normal, but it's not normal. Or you have a situation like Lloyd landing in Vietnam. His brother had actually been in front of him and left and come back, and had a very different experience than he did. And Lloyd was preparing himself, and there he was, like, there's this pool, music, and it's just like, what? I mean, yeah, it was a weird first day. It was a lot weirder than what I can put in there. But it was a very, very interesting sort of duality. And I'm very interested in exploring those. How do you hold those two things in your body and your mind at the same time? Because we all do it. It just so
Yeah.
happens that the ones that seem a little more extreme stand out than the others. But I know we do it every day.
And Lloyd has such an even way of speaking, very measured. He is very in control. I guess maybe
Yeah, I mean,
that's
he's
the
a
way.
good storyteller.
Yeah, 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 yeah. He is. Yeah.
Yeah.
So my husband's a writer, and he has a saying: "You need to drown your kittens," which basically saying sometimes for the cohesion of a piece, you need to let go of something that you're really attached to.
Yes.
That as an artist, was there any story included here that you felt that way about, that was included in the audio recording that didn't make it to the final
Yeah.
animated?
I mean, I could have done a whole animation just about his first day, because his first day, I mean, as captivating as it was, I mean, there was so much more that happened to him. Him having to sleep on the floor of the bunk room that night because there was no space, having with all these, like, guys who had been in the deep jungle, these who had been battle hardened, them waking up that night and being ambushed by mortars, and they are, like, out the door in the bunker before he even got up, you know
Wow.
and, like, him falling down and, like, hitting his head and, like, bleeding, and they're all laughing, having, I mean, this is weird, normal, and normal being conflict, but, like, an environment that he was just jumping into. There was parts of that I wanted to include, but I couldn't. There were stories that he had to work through with some of the people on the base that were really dynamic and heartfelt, but I couldn't put it in there. Or his impact that Bob Dylan has had on his life when he was there,
Wow.
that was very poetic and very touching and very moving. But I couldn't put it in there because mostly you know, I just didn't have the time. I didn't have the financial resources. And I also don't think it would have worked really well with the narrative arc that I was trying to get towards.
You definitely have a beauty in the structure, you know, the ordinary, 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 and then the final one is totally extraordinary. I was aware I had to kill or be killed. I mean, that's kind of the ultimate wartime experience.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. The most profound, but you can't leave with that. Maybe you could, but that
No,
would
I
be a
think,
whole different
I
way.
mean, I don't know. As a viewer, I thought it was really powerful the way you did
Oh,
it.
thank you.
Yeah. Do you think you'll do anything else with these stories?
At this point, I'm not sure. I would love to maybe sit down and cut a longer audio version, with audio with sound effects and that kind of thing. But I don't know. I don't want to rush to that right now. I really kind of want to let this sit. My temptation would be to say yes and dice it up or make it longer or change it. But I think I just am trying to, as an artist, push back on that feeling and just let it be its own thing and just be okay with that. And then
And
look
yeah,
towards something
and you've
else.
got time for this to marinate, and what a fantastic resource you now have with this audio that you've collected.
Yeah, I'm lucky.
Yeah, genealogically and otherwise, and
Yeah,
artistically.
exactly.
This is part of our Metro Shorts program, as I said in the beginning, and I'm wondering if you could, since that spotlights DC filmmakers, could you tell us briefly about your experience in the Washington arts community?
Yeah, I mean, I would say, at least in the film world and in the photography world, it's incredibly supportive. It's very diverse in terms of who's telling the stories, where the stories are going, the approaches to storytelling. So because it's that dynamic, you know, it can take a little of time to kind of find a fit. But I would say for the most part, everybody is really open, really encouraging, and really, really supportive of each other, to the best that their time can give. Not everyone has a lot of time, but you know, the people that are out there, there are people out there, I should say, that are going to be willing to listen and watch and give feedback and be supportive. So it's there. Um, and I'd say to anybody that might be hesitant, jump in, because there's lots of people here to kind of show the way.
And we have loved having the opportunity in the last few years to highlight artists in this community. And on that note, Keith, I want to thank you for being with us. And thank you once again for sharing your film with this year's Filmfest DC lineup. And to our viewers, thank you for watching. And you can watch interviews with all of our Metro Shorts filmmakers. We have 3 separate recordings, so they are all posted on our website. So please enjoy those. And from Filmfest DC, thank you and goodbye.
Thank you.